Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Larry Meyer, and welcome to the next edition of Voices of Beth Torah. And the first several issues I've titled In the Beginning because I wanted to talk about the early days of Beth Torah, how we got started, trials and tribulations. And I figured that no better person to bring on is an oldie but goodie from the past, Laura Intfen. And I wanted to, Laura, a good friend. I remember in the choir singing a lot of songs that Tim did. He's an amazing composer. So we want to know how you guys are doing in Denver and kind of get your thoughts on, when you came to Beth Torah. What was your official title? I guess that was executive director. Uh, Good times, bad times, challenges, and then what the heck you've been doing since. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to my good friend, Laura Infant.
Well, thank you, Larry. And when you first approached me, and I started thinking about my time at Beth Torah, it's like you opened a gate. And I would like to say a gate of memories, and that's true, but really a gate of smiles. I kept going over when you said, what are the highlights? And I kept thinking, oh, this, oh, that, oh, this and that. And I worked there for 20 some odd years, almost 25 years. And
Wow.
it was full of everything. So I started there. I actually was not there at the beginning of Beth Torah. We moved down from Anchorage in 1996, so last century. And we were shul shopping. And one of my best memories is the first time I met Rabbi Levin. Tim and I went to go meet him to look about joining the shul. And he took us outside and he showed us the houses that were at that time being built across the street. One of them
Mhm.
had slid down the mountain and had to be rebuilt. And he just spent 10 minutes talking to Tim and I about rebuilding and growing. And it impressed us, plus the building that was there, so much that we couldn't imagine being anywhere else. So we joined that day. And of course, Tim and I started, as a lot of people did back then, as volunteers. And Tim was attracted to the music program. We had David and Cheryl Harris at the
Mhm.
time. And one of my favorite seconds of Beth Torah is when Mark was talking to us outside and he said to us, I'm hoping that you guys can be the next Harrises. And it turned out we kind of were, not to the level of Cheryl and David, but it was great shoes to fill. And so we started as volunteers. And I was actually a preschool teacher at Beth Shalom right when we first came. And then I met Lisa Ephraim, who was the volunteer coordinator part time at Beth Torah at the time. And she was ready to move on. I think she was moving to the Jewish Community Center for another job. And so I met with Jeannie Court and I told her I was interested in the job. And being Jeannie Court, she absolutely made sure I went through the entire system of being hired, no preference, but I got the job. And the rest is history. I started out part time, and then somehow in the next 2 or 3 years, I made myself invaluable. And so they took me on as full time. And at first, like I said, I was the volunteer coordinator, and I actually went to the director of operations and then executive director. So it was great. And I would say I'm going to start with the low points during those years. The shooting at the JCC stands out in my mind, of course, as the scariest moment of my time there. And like so many tragedies, what followed and the coming together turned out to be a high point. Um, One of my other low points was fighting the wasp's nest in the youth lounge. Um, I'm very allergic to bees, and we were the host of what then they used to call a conclave, but of the gathering for the kids, for the community. And here I had a youth lounge full of wasps. Um, so that was probably one of the most harried moments. Ulysses, as usual, was the hero and helped us out. Um, and then I would say another low point for me was there was a family that were members, and I allowed their struggles to fall through the cracks of my work schedule, and it caused consequences to the family that I regretted terribly. And so I did talk with the family, and they were understandably so upset, and it turned out to their resigning. But that was a low point because that was totally on me. And so those are what I would call the lowest points. The highest points, number one, is the evolution of the chili cook-off. What started out as Betsy Calloway standing out in the rain, flipping hot dogs, evolved with so much energy into this amazing program where we had the auction and we had the carnival, and then of course we had the chili cook-off, and then we had live music. You guys were there playing, I think, a few years.
We
um,
did. We
and
did.
then Jordan's band was there, I think, once. And so it just turned out to be not only a fun evening, it allowed for hundreds of volunteers to get connected, hundreds and hundreds. And it was just amazing. Some of the other evolutions that happened was the storytelling and the Synagogue 2000 campaigns, bringing Torah and worship to a wider audience was such a focus of the staff during those times. And those two programs were great portals. And logistically, they were very, very difficult as the director of operations to bring together both of those campaigns and make them relevant to Beth Torah. But we did it. And it turned out to be a really, really good runway for worship later in Beth Torah's history. I would say another highlight was Rabbi Levin and Casey's wedding. I loved that night so much. I loved prepping for it all day. I loved doing it and thinking about them. So that was good. And then the programming. Joel's Ride is big in my mind. Mitzvah Day, the golf tournaments, working with Sharon. I could never match her energy, but I always tried to match her enthusiasm as not a golfer. And then Leslie and I would drive those carts with the beer on it, knowing no golf rules. And we had a lot of fun. So those were, again, a lot of volunteers, a lot of fun. High holidays were always great. And then I would say the annual days of leadership at Beth Torah, the staff planning day that we used to do every year, to sit in a room and talk with people who love Beth Torah about Beth Torah for 8 hours was a highlight of my year every single year. And then after that, I got to go play with the board for a whole day, and we got to visit for the year. That process of the board, of the staff planning, and then the board planning just worked out great. And so I'm very, very happy that we did it that way, because I think it worked out for the best for all involved. As far as personally, one of my highlights and was the Shiva service for my sister. I lost my sister while I worked there. She was a victim of suicide, and it was horrible for me, and I went through it. I had to go out to California. Then when I came back, and we did the Shiva at my house, at our house, and Mark came, and he started the Shiva as he does all the Shivas. We are gathered here with the Intfen's friend and family and Beth Torah members, and then I have a distinct memory of him stopping, looking at all the people, and he goes, "Oh, I think there's all Beth Torah members in here," which is Laura's community, which of course made me cry. So that was great. The other thing was doing the 100 Days of Giving. Linda Zapula started that, and I got to research and write a piece on 100 different Beth Torah members. Um,
Mhm.
and that to me was so fun. That was almost as fun as counting the Omer. Um, but I got to actually write each day and learn about people, that things I didn't know before. And then the last thing I would consider as the highlights is having the honors to be there for the congregants' life cycle events. Um, there were so many ups and downs of weddings and funerals and bar and bat mitzvahs and baby namings, and that it just, for me, it was just such an honor that these people included Beth Torah in their lives for what is probably one of the worst and best days of their lives. And
Mhm.
how blessed am I to be able to be the one to wrap arms around in joy and sorrow for these people. What an honor. So that is the absolute overlooking highlight of everything, including my children's life cycle events. It really taught me, having both my kids' bat mitzvahs there at Beth Torah, that even though I would be planning a bar and bat mitzvah every week for other people, it's very different when it's yours. And it really
Right.
showed me I need to be more in touch with the fact that even though I do this every week, this is all new to people, and it made me a better Jewish professional to go through all of those life cycles and then go through my own children. Um, the other ongoing personal memory, my favorite times, every Shabbat when I would be in the back of the room and then Tim would be in the front of the room and then the community would be in the middle. Um, it was like our own little Shabbat secret. And I would be in the back and he would be in the front and we'd be looking at each other and singing. And it was definitely a highlight for both of us. Tim really loved the music program. He loved everyone he
Mhm.
worked with, Cantor Finn and Linda Sweeney, and then Emily and Leslie and Judith. All of those musicians, and then the groups that would come, like you and um, I'm going to forget the doctor's name, Applebaum, Jeremy, not Jeremy, that's the son, but
Mhm.
yes. And so all of those times, it was just great to find so much happiness for so much of our family there. Some of the challenges, I think, for Beth Torah while I was there was it was hard to match the financial and building limitations to Rabbi Levin's visions. That was my job, to find out how to be the engine to his dreams with the finances I had and the building limitations that, it's, no, we can't put something in the sanctuary that's 45 feet high. We just can't do that. And just things, conversations like that. And I wish I could have given actually all of the rabbis at Beth Torah a carte blanche. Um, all of them had good, I mean, all of them had a great vision. The ones I worked with, from Rabbi Levin to the second rabbis we brought in, Rabbi Harris, Rabbi Reese, and Rabbi Kleinman, and then, of course, Rabbi that followed Rabbi Levin and Rabbi Katapan and Rabbi Shapiro, all of them. So I wish I could have done that. And then the other thing, the other challenge, and as a past president, maybe you'll understand this. I found it very hard to show the lay leadership how valuable they were. I
Yeah.
I felt like the lay leadership really felt they didn't get the support that they would have wanted while I was there. And I wish I could have done that better for them. Um, because I think it would have been easier to find more leaders if I had done that. I think that the way that the leaders felt at the time really prohibited people from raising their hand and saying, I'll be on the board. And I hope that that has changed with my leaving, but I don't know. But that's something I remember. And then my biggest moment of fear as personally was the day that Jeannie Court walked out the door and left me alone, which I've never let her forget. Um, so she, luckily though, she mentored me really, really well, and I did okay. But I was very scared. She was such a partner, and and then of course we went on and had Jack. But I was more confident by then, and felt more sure of myself. Uh, I miss.
Well,
Go ahead.
it's interesting because my term as president, I squeezed a 2-year term into three,
Mm,
and those 3 years, if you've ever been on a an airplane where it's a thunderstorm when you take off, it's a thunderstorm when you're flying, and it's a thunderstorm when you're landing, the turbulence when you're bouncing all over the place, that's what those 3 years were like.
yeah,
So, and I can't tell you, because also part of that time, not only as president, I was also the executive director because that was another position that got vacated.
yeah,
And I had a dollar for every time someone said, or I said, boy, Laura would know how to do this, or well, Laura would know where it is, or where's the papers for this, or where Laura would know. So well, she's not here. It's like, I was like, what do we do? So yeah, if I had a dollar for every time that happened, I wouldn't have to go do the houses down in the hood that I do. So
I appreciate that.
between you and Sharon, Sharon Allman, you guys know where all the bodies are buried,
Right.
and yeah, that's yeah. So it was great, but wonderful memories. So you left Beth Torah and you moved to Denver. Where? So tell a little bit about where you went.
So I moved to Denver, and I moved actually for a job. Tim was planning on retiring anyway, and this was in 2019. And I got a message that a large conservative synagogue here in Denver, Hebrew Educational Alliance, was looking for an executive director. Threw my hat in, talked to Rabbi Katapan quite a few times, threw my hat in. For some reason, they wanted me. And so I went over there, and it was quite different. But I made lots of friends again, worked with great rabbis. And then, as this community knows, I got pretty sick exactly a year after I moved to Denver. Unfortunately, I developed stage 4 cancer. And so I had to stop working and take care of my health. And when I returned to health, I decided to pull back a little bit, and I became the executive director of a much smaller synagogue here in town, B'nai Havarah, which is a Reconstructionist synagogue, a stream of Judaism I didn't know a lot about. Learned a lot, had a great 3 years there. And then I decided it was time for Tim and I to be retired together and investigate this beautiful state we live in now. So we're doing that. Um, Avery, my oldest, is still in Michigan up there. He's kind of gotten involved in community organizing, and with the elections coming up, is making sure that transgendered rights remain in Michigan, as they are. And so he's working on that. And Erica lives here in Denver. And I don't know how many people know this, but she actually married a childhood friend from Beth Torah. So
Wow.
I don't know if any of you remember Ellen and Joe Green that were there in the 90s, and they had 3 sons. And their middle son, Josh, Erica's known since kindergarten. That family moved away. Erica and Josh reconnected, now married for 2 years, living here in Denver, and part of the music scene. He's a bluegrass musician. And so, of course, Tim loves that. And we enjoy living so close to them. So there we are. Here we are.
Perfect. Yeah, all good news. I mean, I love Colorado. My daughter lives in Colorado.
Mhm.
I love it there. I've been camping and backpacking in every square inch of Colorado in the mountains. I have lots of friends there. I go to and I go visit my daughter every chance I get. just as an excuse to go out there and find somewhere to go exploring. So all good stuff. You picked the right spot. We certainly miss you at Beth Torah. Lots of challenges, and so in closing, I just wanted to, you left a definite impact on a lot of people. I think a lot of people, once I spring this, that you're the next chapter of Voices of Beth Torah. Oh my God! There'll be quite an exuberant outcry. So it'll be great. So I'm glad that you came. And I'll try on my future visits to Colorado. I'm going to come find you. I want to say hi to Tim.
I will.
And I love his music. I remember both in the choir and in the house band playing his stuff. It was like, this guy's really good. So anxious to get caught up again. So I appreciate it. And good luck. So let's stay in touch.
Okay.
And hopefully I can bring you back on for future episodes as they pop up.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I miss you, and I miss the staff, and I would say today's Thursday, and early Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Laura.
Okay.
All right, thank you.